Think kings were the only ones running the show? Think again. From burning cities to building empires, these queens didn't just sit pretty on their thrones. They led armies, outsmarted enemies, and changed history while making their male counterparts look like total amateurs. Let me tell you about Boudicca. She's basically the original rebel queen with a cause. When Roman officials made the terrible mistake of attacking her family in 60 CE, this Celtic warrior didn't just get mad, she got even. Picture a fierce redhead in a chariot, leading 100,000 angry Britons against the mighty Roman Empire. She torched their fancy new cities, London, Colchester, you name it, and sent Rome's finest soldiers running for the hills. The Romans thought they could push around some barbarian queen. Ha! Boudicca showed them exactly what Celtic fury looked like, and spoiler alert, it wasn't pretty. Her revenge tour left 70,000 Romans dead and proved that you should never, ever mess with a mother protecting her people. Now let's talk about Zetian, the ultimate boss lady of ancient China. She started as a 14-year-old concubine and ended up becoming the only woman to ever rule China as emperor. That's right, not empress, emperor. Wu played the long game like a master chess player. She went from serving tea to calling the shots, outlasting 2 emperors and outmaneuvering everyone who stood in her way. Sure, her methods were a bit extreme. Let's just say her enemies had a habit of disappearing. But you can't deny her results. She expanded China's borders, created a merit-based government system, and gave farmers tax breaks. While other rulers were busy building monuments to themselves, Wu was actually making life better for ordinary people. Ready for the wildest royal makeover ever? Meet Catherine, a German princess who transformed herself into Russia's most legendary ruler. Here's the thing, she wasn't even Russian, and her name wasn't originally Catherine. She arrived in Russia as Princess Sophie, speaking zero Russian, married to a guy who'd rather play with toy soldiers than run a country. But Catherine wasn't about to play second fiddle to anyone. She learned Russian, charmed the nobles, and when her husband proved to be a total disaster as emperor, she staged the smoothest coup in history. One day Peter's on the throne, the next, boom, Catherine's running the show. She turned Russia from a backward kingdom into a European powerhouse, and she did it with style. Let me introduce you to Queen Nzinga, the 17th century African ruler who gave Portuguese colonizers the biggest headache of their lives. When the Portuguese tried to turn Angola into their personal slave-trading playground, Nzinga said, "Not on my watch." She walked into negotiations with the Portuguese governor who tried to show dominance by offering her no chair. So what did she do? Had her servant become her human throne? Talk about a power move. For 4 decades, she used everything from clever diplomacy to guerrilla warfare to protect her people. She built alliances, led armies from the front lines, and turned the tables on European colonizers who thought they could just walk all over African kingdoms. At 60, she was still leading troops into battle on horseback, putting those retirement-age jokes to shame. Ever heard of Cyrus the Great, the Persian king who conquered half the known world? Well, he met his match in Queen Thamyris of the Massagetay. When Cyrus tried to get sneaky and capture her kingdom through a fake marriage proposal, Thamyris basically said, "Nice try, buddy." But Cyrus didn't take the hint. He tricked and killed her son in battle, thinking he'd won. Big mistake. Huge. Thamyris gathered her army, handed Cyrus the most humiliating defeat of his life, and, here's the wild part, turned his skull into a wine cup. She literally told him, "You wanted blood? Drink up." The history books love talking about Cyrus's victories, but they tend to get real quiet about how a nomad queen ended his whole career. Talk about a plot twist. You might know Isabella as the queen who bankrolled Columbus's famous voyage, but that's like saying Michael Jordan just sold some sneakers. This queen was a medieval multitasker on steroids. While most royals were busy with fancy banquets, Isabella was charging into battle wearing 50 pounds of armor. She'd go from signing royal decrees to leading armies, sometimes while pregnant. When her brother left her a kingdom in chaos, Isabella didn't just fix it. She turned Spain into Europe's first superpower. She played politics like a grandmaster, reformed the entire justice system, and still found time to negotiate the best deal in maritime history. Yeah, Columbus had to beg other monarchs for years, but Isabella saw the bigger picture and took a chance that changed the world. Let's talk about Olympias, the woman who put the great in Alexander the Great. While her son was off conquering Persia, she was busy being the scariest person in Macedonia. Think your mum was intense? Olympias kept pet snakes and claimed she was impregnated by Zeus himself. When her husband Philip tried replacing her with a younger wife, well, let's just say he didn't wake up for breakfast. She raised Alexander to believe he was literally a god, managed Macedonia's politics like a pro, and eliminated rivals faster than you can say suspicious accident. Even after Alexander died, she kept fighting for power well into her 60s. Talk about a helicopter parent with actual weapons. Let me introduce you to Zenobia, the queen who gave Rome a run for its money from her desert kingdom of Palmyra. When her husband mysteriously died, wink wink, she didn't just step up as regent. She created an empire that stretched from Egypt to Turkey. She turned her tiny trading city into a massive power player, conquered Egypt in what felt like a lunch break, and had her face stamped on coins with the title Augusta, basically telling Rome, "I'm the captain now." She spoke multiple languages, hunted lions for fun, and drank her military commanders under the table. The Romans thought they could just march in and take over. Please. Zenobia's army sent them packing faster than a camel crossing hot sand. All right, buckle up for the story of Theodora, the woman who went from circus performer to running the Byzantine Empire. Born into the lowest ranks of society, she started out as an actress and dancer, which back then was basically code for scandalous profession. But Theodora had bigger dreams than entertaining crowds. She caught the eye of Justinian, the future emperor, who was so smitten he changed the law just to marry her. When a massive riot threatened to topple their empire, Justinian was ready to run. But Theodora, she stood up and delivered the ancient equivalent of, "If I'm going down in style." Her fierce speech saved the empire, and she went on to become the most powerful woman in Byzantine history, championing women's rights and proving that your past doesn't define your future. Here's a queen who took multitasking to a whole new level. Lakshmi Bai wasn't just fighting the British Empire, she was doing it with her adopted son strapped to her back. When the British tried to steal her kingdom through some sketchy paperwork, she grabbed her sword and said, "I don't think so." She trained other women in warfare, rode horses better than most men, and led armies into battle while rocking full traditional dress. The British called her the most dangerous of all Indian leaders. When they finally cornered her in 1858, she broke through their siege on horseback, fighting with sword in hand. This warrior queen became such a legend that even her enemies had to admit she was the most dangerous of all rebel leaders. Talk about mom goals. Talk about... These queens proved that behind every great empire, there was often an even greater woman calling the shots. Hit that like button if you want more royal rebellion stories. Subscribe to catch our next historical throwdown, and share this with someone who loves powerful women.